Morning. Good morning, everybody. Dun, dun, dun. Good morning, everybody. So, doing a walk and talk because I had a funny thing that happened to me last night, and I figured I want to share it with people. I was doing some late night food shopping the other night, and apparently it was 70s night, and they're playing 70s music. They play 70s, 80s, 90s music every different night. So I'm getting some muffins. I like a good muffin. Chocolate, chip, cinnamon, blueberry, whatever. And the song, I'm sure you all know it, Blinded by the Light, was playing. And it's got some funny lyrics in it. I'm sure you all know. You can listen to it. And this lady was singing the lyrics, a woman who works at the store, and she was walking past me, and I looked at her, she was smiling, and I'm like, yeah, strangest lyrics to that song. She's like, yeah, and she's kind of a nice old lady, kind of like a lunch lady, bus driver. I'll call her old lunch lady bus driver. So old lunch lady bus driver was talking to me, and I don't know how we got on this conversation, and it's the reason why I'm talking to y'all today. It's because she started talking about drugs. She was talking about, I did all these drugs, and she's talking about drugs she did, and I'm talking about, oh yeah, I know, yeah, and I was like, yeah, I don't know, basically just smoke weed and, whatever. And I never really got into the hard stuff, and she mentioned something about mescaline, and I was like, oh, Hunter S. Thompson fan, huh? And she's like, I only did it once. Anyway, the reason I'm telling you all this is because we got into this conversation. I was like, yeah, I don't really do anything anymore. And she's like, really? And so I started explaining it to her, and basically was saying that, yeah, I stopped drinking, and she's like, oh, that's good. That's really good. I was like, yeah. It's been over a year now. And she's saying, oh, that's great. And I was like, yeah. She's like, she obviously was talking about, certain things. She's talking about, mostly she likes to smoke weed. And I was like, oh, that's great. That's good. That's kind of my jam. And but I was like, yeah, I don't even do that anymore. She's like, really? I was like, yeah. And so I don't really want to talk about her in our conversation, but I'll just explain it for you guys. Yeah, I used to drink a lot, and I used to smoke a lot, and I really don't do that anymore. And it's a funny story, actually. Of course, I've been drinking since I was a kid. Used to steal sips of my dad's old Miller High Life, the little half bottles, when we were at my uncle's place. And it turned out like my uncle would give him a bottle and practically drink the whole thing. And my dad would be like, hey, where'd my beer go? So I started young, probably like about, I don't know, 8 years old. Ooh. And whatever, and then growing up as young teenagers, we'd all my friends and I, when we weren't skateboarding or riding our dirt bikes, we'd raid all of our parents' liquor cabinets and try this and ooh, try that cream de menthe, I don't know about that, and oh, let's make screwdrivers. And you pour you do it the wrong way because you're a kid, you don't know. you mix a whole big tall glass of orange juice, and then you pour the vodka on top, and then you didn't even stir it, and then you're like, this is horrible, but you drink it anyway, and you get sick as a dog. But I'll get to the weed also. So I've been drinking a lot, since I was a kid, and then I guess I started smoking weed just before senior year high school. So actually right on school property with my friend, and we got like a dime bag, and I won't say my friend's name. We'll just call him Anon. So me and Anon, like, got this other guy, another Anon, to buy us a dime bag. The worst part of the city back then. And he rolled up 2 joints for us, which was surprising. You could get out of a dime bag back then. And we're skateboarding, and we like smoked 1 joint right in front of our high school. And we're like, you feel anything? Do you feel anything? I don't feel anything. Does it do anything to you? And our other friend come over, and he's like, let me see your eyes. And we're like, yeah? And he's like, yeah, you're high. Apparently we didn't feel it the first time. So we're like, do you wanna smoke that other joint? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So we smoked that other joint real quick, and boy, then we were feeling it. Like, it was so terrible. Like, had to have parents come pick us up and driving both of us home, and my friend's in the back seat, like, just like talking all this bullshit. I don't know what my dad thought. He was like, what the hell's going on? Dropped him off. My dad pulls up in the driveway at our house, and the radio, first of all, the radio wasn't on the whole time, okay? So we pull up in the driveway. My dad puts the car in park, and I'm like, oh, it's time to turn the radio off. The radio was off. I turned it on, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? And for the rest of the night, I just like stared at the TV on the couch. I don't know what my parents thought, because they never did drugs, so they had no idea what was going on. Anyway, so I have a long history with weed and alcohol, mostly beer, not that much liquor. I wasn't really into that. Boy, it's a nice day. Anywho, the reason I'm telling you all this is, I guess I was kind of, not really addicted to it, because it's not like I had to get drunk or anything. You go through the college years, and actually there were many long years that I didn't smoke weed, but then I guess after the millennium, it was like pretty much nonstop. So I guess after we went through the whole C-19 debacles, got me thinking, because you spend a whole lot of time at home and everything. And it's not that I really had a problem, but it's just like, I didn't really want to do it anymore. But for some reason, I just kept doing it. And so I'll tell you 2 things. I'll tell you how I quit it and why I quit it. It's actually really simple. Well, I found out how to quit it, and why to quit it. Both of them. Like I said, I haven't drank for over a year now. It's been, let's see, 12, 13 months of it. And it's been about 7 months not smoking weed, and pretty much happened like overnight. Like just one night I was like, you know what, tomorrow, no more beer. Then 8 months later, 6 months later, 8 months later, something like that. It's from November to July. Then in July I stopped smoking weed, and it was just like day, just stopped. So it was kind of funny, because ever since I stopped, I really haven't had any need or want, or even any temptations to do it ever again. It just, something clicked in my brain. I've had enough of it my whole life, and just got to that point where I was like, no, I'm done. And it was like, a couple months after, a couple of months separation between the 2 substances. But and there's a reason why for that delayed reaction, I guess I'll get into it. But the first point of quitting it was I figured out kind of a way to stop doing it altogether, and it's sort of a two-part thing. First part is the less you do, the less you want to do. So it's like, you know, like until the day that I stopped cold, it was sort of like, you know, winding down, you know. So I'm like winding down, and then all of a sudden one day it's just boom, done. I picked the day, picked the numbers of the days, 11/11 and 7/7 and 22 and 23, and I figured out that you know, the two part of it. Okay, the first part is you do less, and then it's kind of like, you know, when I guess from what I've heard, like, you know, when people, like, you know, come off of heroin and, you know, they stop doing heroin and then they relapse, you know, they keep doing the same amount and it like practically almost kills them. Some it does kill them, you know, because they take the same amount. Well, it's like when you do less every day, if you can find a way to do less every day, it's sort of just like, it's horrible. The like you find a way to do less, and so when you do it again, so let's say one day you're drinking and then, you know, you don't drink as much that day, and then the next day, you know, you go to drink and it's like too much for you, you know, it makes you feel horrible, you know, and you notice it, you really, you know, it's noticeable. And so, and the same thing with weed, except in a different way. It's like the less I smoked of weed, the more I didn't want to smoke weed, because it was like, it just got me way too high, like, and actually that helped me quit weed a lot faster than quitting alcohol, quitting beer mostly. As I said, I'm not really a liquor guy. So, but in my brain, what was going on the whole time throughout this whole process, and it was a process of, let's say, about a year, and I'll get into that, what really helped me. But I found out that if I could get bored with it, that would really, really help. I found out that if I could get bored with it, that would really help my mental attitude. You know, I found that, like, you know, I discovered that whenever in my life, you know, I just stopped doing something, it was because I became bored with it. You know, you're playing video games and you get bored with the game because you're playing it too much, and then you just stop. All of a sudden you have no interest of doing it ever again, you know. Or like anything, it's like, you know, one day I was in, you know, as a kid I was into, you know, riding my dirt bike, and then the next day, overnight, I was into skateboarding. You know, it was like I had no interest in doing something. And, you know, maybe that's just me. Some people are different, you know. It's kind of how I am about certain things. So I found that, like, boredom really helped me. I was like, I'm bored with doing this. I'm like, and there's a reason for the boredom. I'll get into that. That's the second part of this. Like, I just like, I don't want to have to go to the store, you know, and buy more. Like, I gotta get in my car, I gotta drive, you know. And like, same thing with the weed, is like, I gotta get papers, like, or even at that point it was just like, I gotta go pick up some more weed. I just, fuck it, forget it, I don't even want to do it. And it's kind of ironic because the state I'm in, it's kind of funny. I guess I'm a weirdo, because ever since it became legal here, weed, I just like, you know what? I don't want to do it anymore. It's kind of like, oh, it's legal now? Fuck that. That's boring. I guess there's a whole psychology with doing that, but so boredom, yeah, that was a really big help. Getting bored with something, that helped me quit. So There's a reason for the boredom, though, that I put that together in my brain psychologically. Since the whole C19 years, I one day, because I never did it before, had the opportunity in high school, and then I guess in college I never got into it, never took the opportunity. I guess maybe I was a little scared of it, never did it. It was hallucinogenics, specifically mushrooms. I remember when we were all drinking wine and smoking weed one time in high school, and all my friends were doing shrooms, and I was like, yeah, no, because I gotta drive. I ended up being like, most of the time, the sober driver for my friends, which was kind of funny, even though I took little nips of weed, here and there. But so, and they're like, oh my God, look at that spider's eyes. And I'm like, they're so big. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Anyway, so came down a couple years ago. I tried mushrooms for the first time in the form of chocolates. Really nice, mushroom oil chocolates. Really nice ones. And come in all different varieties. You can get them all. You can get the blue meanies, you can get the Amazonians, you can get the penis envy. Those were the best because they're like nice little gold chocolates, and like gold speckled chocolates with like gold speckling. It was like and kind of tasted I don't know, kind of weird, kind of like when you eat like a weed candy, it's sometimes you really taste that strong, like, THC, flavor, and it's just sort of like, not necessarily medicinal, but just like real earthy and just like, So anyway, tried shrooms. So I tried shrooms, and I gotta say, I was immediately into it. Like the first time I did it, first time I tried them, I was noticing things. Like, first of all, like, I didn't want to move. People were like, hey, why don't you get up and walk around? And I'm like, yeah, nah, that's okay. I don't want to. Because then I'd have to get up, or, they're like, hey, why, and I started noticing. People were like, hey, why don't you have a beer? And I'm like, yeah, nah, yeah, no, why? Why are you telling me that? It's kind of interesting how shrooms make you very suggestible, because at first I was like, hey, why don't you have a beer? I was like, yeah, have a beer, But after a while I was like, wait, why am I having a beer just because you said have a beer? Why am I, I noticed the suggestibility with shrooms, and I guess I kind of quickly overcame that, noticing that. But, so I noticed the first time, I was like, just like shroomed out of my head, and I'm just sitting at this table, and I'm just like looking at all the things on the table, and I'm just looking at all these items, like, like the bong, cigarette lighter, beer bottles, glasses, food, whatever, all different plates, forks, knives, all these things on the table. And I'm going, like, looking at them, and I'm going, all these things have their own personalities. In fact, I think they all might be conscious in their own way. Maybe they all deserve their own names. Huh. They're my little friends. But anyway, aside from that, get to the boredom. It's like, with shrooms, you sort of like, it's not like so much with weed. Like, you see the joke in the movie Harold and Kumar where they're like, oh, I forgot my wallet. And they're like, should we go back and get it? And he's like, no, we've gone too far. It's kind of like that. It was just like, that enabled me doing shrooms. And let me tell you something, I did shrooms a lot. Like for a whole year. Whole motherfucking year. Like, and listen, I guess I'm the kind of person where I'll ride it till the wheels come off. I just doing them and doing them and doing them. And I'm like, hey, listen, if you're gonna be a bear, be a grizzly. So I was doing shrooms like every week, damn near every day for a whole year. And then eventually I got to the point where it's not that I got bored with shrooms, but it got to the point where I'm like, it led me to stop drinking alcohol. And I guess I tapered down with the shrooms a little before I stopped drinking. And what I noticed about the shrooms is that crush that one shroom and put it into a hot cup of tea. Now every little drop of that tea water has the same amount of that shroom in it. And I learned really quickly that you make one cup of tea with like one crushed up shroom in it, and you drink that really fast, you're pretty much almost taking like a heroic dose of shrooms. Not really, but I mean, you get more bang for your buck that way. And so eventually I tried doing, mushroom tea with some weed. And interesting fact, if you do want to have a really interesting experience, crush up some shroom, put it in some tea, and also crush up some weed and also stir it up in the tea together, and you will have an experience like no other. I mean, I always heard about, like, you know, making weed tea, and I never really tried it until I decided to start experimenting, and that was crazy. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. When you take weed and mushrooms and mix it into tea, it's not what you'll expect. At least, I mean, everybody's different, but I'll tell you, my experience was something very, very interesting. When you make weed mushroom tea, you're gonna find out that they act differently mixed together and ingested at the same time. And it's not like when you know, eat a mushroom and smoke some weed, you're gonna get high and you're also gonna trip out, just like that. But when you make the tea, it all infuses together. And the way I like to explain it is like this. It's like you make weed mushroom tea. The shrooms get high and the weed trips out. Like, you know, like when you smoke weed and you're like, you hear something, you're like, what was that? You know? Or like with shrooms, you'll start like looking at something, you'll be like, what the hell? What is going on with that? Well, it's sort of like reverses. It's sort of like, if you're watching TV, I noticed drinking mushroom weed tea, I noticed that every channel on TV looked like it was happening live via, you know, closed circuit TV. It was like everything looked like it was live, like, you know, the old TV shows like from the 50s or 60s where everything was televised live in front of a studio audience and, you know, and broadcast and transmitted live at that moment. That's what it looked like. It seemed like everything was happening live, and that actually helped me, like, also quit watching TV. It's kind of funny how, you know, all these little addictions sort of just, like, you know, wind up falling away. So you know, I was doing that for a good while, and because I figured, like, listen, I guess I want to have maximum effect. You know, my friends are like, wow, you're really like doing shrooms all the time. I'm like, yup. And I discovered that has a delayed reaction. So, you know, it wasn't until like after a year of first doing them, like hardcore, that I really started to, you know, it started sinking in. Like, that's things, like mushrooms have like a delayed reaction on your life. They'll start kicking in and you'll start like figuring stuff out after a while. Like, it's not necessarily long term, but it's like, you know, it's not necessarily short term. It's like, you're not gonna like try some mushrooms like here and there, you know, and then you're gonna have, like, you know, big change in your life. I would say quite the contrary. It's like, if you do a lot, so of course it speeds up the process, but like shrooms are gonna have like a delayed reaction. So it's like, just after like a year of doing that, like, then everything sort of started filtering into my brain, and I never really went psychotic. I mean, you know, I had a few times where I was really tripping hard, where like one time everything turned like cyan, like like that one time when I tried drinking Four Loko. I couldn't even drink a full can of Four Loko. I drank like just about half, and all of a sudden, like, everything started turning blue, like, and I'm like, oh, this isn't good. I'm gonna die. I mean, there was one time where I was just like tripping hard, and everything turned blue, and everything started like melting into each other. Like, things were literally melting. And then at one point I was like seeing through, I was laying down looking at the ceiling, and I was like, felt like I was like looking through my ceiling and seeing like the whole different, like, universe or something. But mostly, you know, unless you take like a real big dose of shrooms, you're not gonna really hallucinate. I mean, with acid, I thought I was gonna like start seeing everything, like everybody's faces melt and everything. That never really happened. I didn't even feel like happy on acid for the month that I tried it. For shrooms, it was a whole big thing. Actually, shrooms like make you really, really happy. And like, for as much as you think, like when you smoke weed with people, with your friends, and you all like sort of like think about the same thing and it's happening, you know, and you like all sort of get like telepathic, like 10, 100 times more with shrooms. And it kind of brought me back to like the first times when I was smoking weed, like maybe back in the day. Like, I mean, you know, smoked weed and it would like make you just like hysterically laugh. Like you just like laugh, even though you don't know what you're laughing about. Like that was kind of what it's like with shrooms. Just so you know, it's like you want to take shrooms with people because you'll start laughing and another person will start laughing. Soon the whole room's laughing and you don't even know why you're laughing, or like, and you get like really sort of like telepathic with that kind of shit. It's sort of like, and then eventually like sort of like know what everybody's laughing about, and it's, you don't even have to speak to each other. It's kind of funny that way. But what was I gonna say? So yeah, shrooms. They had a delayed effect, and it worked really well to help me get bored with doing things, or actually with getting bored with doing things, so that I stopped doing them. And that was really, really helpful, because I found out there were a lot of things that I really don't need to be doing anymore, you know? Alcohol, weed, TV, you know? And I guess you can apply it to other things, you know, if you have problems with like porn addiction in your life, you know, smoking cigarettes. Also, hanging out with toxic people, you know, real narcs. You find out that you're just like, oh, it's not worth it. Like, fuck that. You know, it's sort of like, forget it. Like, and it's so easy for you to just be like, nope, no more, done, I'm done, I'm out, peace out. Oh, I smell somebody smoking weed around here. So, as a result of all this, you know, like I said, really, since I quit these two substances, I quit them like cold turkey, like overnight. It really just like didn't really even need to think about it. In fact, I didn't even think about it afterwards. It was just like, yeah, I don't do it anymore. And it turned into like 1 week, turned into 2 weeks, turned into a month, turned into 2 months, 3 months, you know. And people are like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, yeah, I don't. And I could even be around other people that were imbibing in these substances, and like, you know, it's not like they asked me if I wanted some, but I just didn't want it. I'm just not interested. It just fell right out of my head, which was really surprised me, and I was very happy about that. So I you know, I just stopped doing it and never really thought about it before. I guess I had one moment, sort of like a year later, or 7 months for the weed, where I was doing some dog sitting for someone, and you know, I'm hanging out, and they left their bong on the table with some weed in it, and they got beers in the fridge, and I guess I sort of felt what temptation was like, because I was like, like no one's around, like I could, like, you know, take some nip of this weed, or like, oh, maybe I could have a beer, and hey, I could have a nice evening with the dogs. But I was like, you know, I thought about it for a second, I was just like, yeah, no. And I mean, You know, it's not like I had to be like, oh, pray to Jesus, you know, like, oh, should I do this or shouldn't I? It was just sort of a momentary thing that I thought, and then I'm like, no, why did I even think that? And then the thought was out of my head. So I got to say that how and why to quit. I mean, you can come up with your whole why about like quitting substances. I mean, if you have a real bad addiction, I didn't really have a real bad addiction. So I'd never really been addicted. You know, I just like did, but I never like, you know, got raving drunk that I would like, you know, pass out. I was never in my whole life like that. It was just a social thing. But during, you know, the C19 years, you know, you sort of like do more at home because you got nothing else to do. And so that sort of like weighed on my brain, going like, yeah, you know, I can't keep doing this. So, and the funny thing about the shrooms is, after all is said and done, you know, quit the alcohol, quit the weed, and it was a little bit after I stopped drinking, that maybe about a month or so, that I was just like, I had my last bit of shrooms, and I just wasn't interested in taking them anymore. They're actually kind of really, like, I mean, shrooms, like, I mean, they will really, like, they'll wreck you. Like, I mean, you better have a whole day, like, prepared, because, like, you're not going to want to do anything. You're just going to want to, like, lay there. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to talk about shrooms, about the visuals. Never really saw any visuals, unless you close your eyes. You close your eyes and you're listening to music. That's where you see all the visuals. You will see visuals like crazy. Like, I mean, swirls, patterns, a whole lot of shit. Just kind of interesting. You think about it. Because everyone thinks like, oh, you're gonna trip out, you're gonna see all this stuff. Yeah, I guess you do. But mostly only when you close your eyes. So that's my little talk for the world. Just wanted to say that quitting, you know, if you already have a why to quit, but the how to quit, I would definitely recommend trying hallucinogens. Definitely some shrooms, some shroom candy, or eating the shrooms. If you want to eat the shrooms, that's fine, but like I said, I much prefer, and you probably might too, make some shroom tea. And if you're interested, try mixing the weed with the shrooms in your tea. And I guarantee you'll have an experience like you've never had before. It's not what you expect. Not what you expect it would be like. You would think like, oh, I'm just gonna get high and trip. No, it's sort of like an inverse effect. And it's kind of radical. After it happened, I was like, oh my God, you gotta try this way. I don't know if my friends ever did, but whatever. So yeah, so I got to the point where, you know, I quit the alcohol. And a couple months later, didn't have any more shrooms. And a couple months later after that, just got bored with weed and didn't want it anymore. And like I said, overnight, just, there's a snap, ended. And haven't wanted any alcohol ever. Don't have any yearning for it or the weed and the shrooms. Gave all my shrooms away. After I reached that point, I was just like, here, you can have them. I don't need these anymore. And I haven't had any want or need to since. And I guess I'm at the point now where it's easy for me to say this because I've gone through all the time, you know. I wouldn't want to say anything after I just did it and it happened, you know, because I'm embarking on this experiment called life in my own way. and I wouldn't want to say anything before, I knew exactly what the results or the outcome was. So that's my story. I think actually, if anything, shrooms saved my life because, like I said, it got me away from toxic substances and toxic people, and definitely toxic ways of thinking. It sort of changes your way of thinking. Like, however you think you might, like, smoke some weed and turn into a hippie. Like, no, if anything, I'm gonna turn more into a hippie if you're trying the shroom. I mean, you hear like people like Rogan or Terrence McKenna talk about, shrooms, or who's the other guy? I don't know. There are a lot of people that have tried it and talked about it. I'm not the first one, but I have to say, I guess I had to go through my whole life to experience it the way I experienced it, and then get to a point where I was like, you know what? It's about time. And I guess I'm happy I did that because I don't know if I really had so many problems, in my life when I was in high school. Not many people do, unless you come from a fucked up family, or are around like really toxic people, date the wrong people, and have bad experiences early on. But I'd have to say that it just happened at the right moment in my life for me, where I just decided to try it and not be afraid. And if I'm going to give any advice to anyone out there in YouTube land, I guess is proceed with caution. Just because like if you don't want to take a huge 100 milligram dose of weed candy and go psychotic, I guess it's the same thing with shrooms. But definitely, if you do try it, decide to, do it with other people. Like they always say, you want someone to be a spotter, because here's the other thing. You're probably going to have problems with like seeing things. Like, it's not that things are going to melt, but you sort of like, your vision changes when you're on shrooms because the wavelength changes. And from what I understand, is that people always say like, oh, it trips you up into this higher state of consciousness / frequency. Actually, no. Actually, it trips you down, which is actual truth of the matter. It actually lowers your vibration frequency, because it like turns a lot of things off. People like to say it the other way, but I would say they're incorrect. I'm not going to say they're liars or they're wrong or they're inaccurate. I would say that they might be ill-informed. So, and definitely get some good music to listen to, and go ahead and try shrooms, smoke some weed. If you're drinking, smoking cigarettes, whatever, do that while you're doing it and see how it makes you feel, because you might surprise yourself and you might go, I don't really feel like drinking this beer now, or I don't really feel like smoking this cigarette, or like, why the fuck are we hanging out with that guy or girl? And you might really be surprised, and I would say in a good way. So I guess that's all I got to say, and I hope you all try and live a good life. And at some point I would imagine that shrooms are going to be legal just like weed became legal. It's just a matter of time. But for however much people used to say like, oh, weed is going to like ruin society, or like the powers that be or the powers that should not be, think like, oh, this isn't good for society, or because it's going to like fuck up their apple carts. It's going to be 100 times worse for them when shrooms become legal, or enough people start tripping out. I would say, however much they say like, oh, this political leader should smoke some weed and see what it's like. You get them high on shrooms. their whole life is going to change. They might not be as much of an asshole as they used to be. So that's my piece. Just dropping the true tea, the real tea, like I'm saying. That's what I found in my life. So I don't know, you do what you want. Be blessed. God bless. Have a wonderful day, night, evening, and be kind. Rewind your mind. Peace out. One love. So yeah, so this is a one wall for my channel. Hopefully you enjoyed my talk. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, leave some comments, let me know what you think, and let's get a conversation going. Let's see what people have to say in the comment section right down there. Come on, talk to each other. Let me know, talk to me. Let's get it going. All right, I'm out. Oh yeah, and just one more thing I want to say about weed and shrooms and alcohol. You know, a lot of people think that you know, you're gonna like lose your creativity. I have to say that ever since because it was like, I guess maybe a little concern of mine, is after I quit smoking weed and drinking, and not necessarily with the shrooms, I don't know, I guess the shrooms like helped me be creative in another way, but I have to say that I am way more creative now that I'm not smoking weed. And I really, that was a real surprise to me, is that, you know, not smoking weed, I thought that like I owed all my creativity for, you know, better part of ever since, you know, the 9/11 year. You know, I thought that weed was like helping me be like way creative. No, this is some insight for all you kids out there. It's like, no, I mean, you'll find out that like, you know, you're way more creative not smoking weed. I mean, you will find out that you will start like having so much more ideas that come to your mind, you know, just from not smoking weed. So, you know, think about that, because if you think that you need the weed to be creative, you know, well, guess what? That's a crutch, you know, and, you know, that's like I was saying about like addictive thoughts, is like, if you think that you need something to be a certain way, you're definitely mistaken. And so you might want to think twice about that. So you'll find out that, you know, you were definitely wrong in a lot of regards. You know, that's what I learned from my whole experience with all this, is that, you know, just not having weed anymore in my life. And I'm like, I have like so many more ideas, you know, so many more than I ever thought I ever would have with the weed. So, and maybe the shrooms had something to do with that, you know, because, you know, they sort of help you, make you look at life from a different perspective, you know, not necessarily when you're shrooming or when you're tripping, but afterwards, like I said, the delayed reaction, you know, sort of like things like, you know, filter into your brain after a while, you know, I guess you sort of do like a reset, you know, ooh, this is the great reset. Yee.